2026 University of Vishal. I welcome you all to the defense ceremony of PhD scholar Mr. Muhammad Ilyas. Before we formally start, I would like to invite Mr. Sahirullah to recite a few verses from the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس صدق الله العظيم.
Okay, let me give you a brief introduction of PhD scholar Mr. Muhammad Ilyas. Mr. Muhammad Ilyas did his master from this department in session 2005 and 6. He was enrolled in MPhil leading to PhD program under indigenous HEC PhD scholarship program in our department. After successfully completing the required coursework, he started research work under the supervision of Professor Dr. Salamuddin. Later on, he got ESSEC scholarship for 6 months and went to Canada. Then he joined the University of British Columbia. He spent 6 months there and worked under the supervision of Professor Dr. Robin Zaman. He is working under the supervision of Professor Dr. Salahuddin. Professor Dr. Salahuddin, as you all know, was a professor here before 2013. He has already supervised 5 PhD and many MPhil scholars in our department. The research topic of PhD research work of Mr. Ilyas is a comparative study of biased, robust and biased, robust regression in some improved diagnostic and estimation strategies. Examiners for today's defense Professor Dr. Irshad Ahmed Arshad. Professor Irshad Ahmed Arshad is Dean of Sciences and Chairman, Department of Statistics in Allama Iqbal Open University. The other examiners are Professor Dr. Kamar Zaman, who is Professor in our department, Professor Dr. Yusuf Ayad, who is Professor and Chairman in Agricultural University, Peshawar. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Ilyas to present and defend his PhD research work. And after presentation, there will be a question and answer session. So, Mr. Ilyas, please come and present your work.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, I welcome all of you to my PhD presentation. The study is being carried out under the topic, the comparative study of biased robust regression and some improved diagnostic and estimation strategies. We have the outlines of the presentation, introduction, objectives of the study, proposed work, summary and conclusion, future work, and references. Brief introduction of the regression problem. Usually we have this model to, while modeling this, often we have to go for estimation of the model parameters and its prediction, identifying the best subset of predictors, identifying unusual points, assessment and validation of the selected model, characterizing the distribution of the disturbance term, robustness issues, sparsity and shrinkage. In this particular study, we focus on the following objectives: to provide an overview of the process modeling, especially focus on robust regression analysis, to compare OLS and some other robust regression methods, that how they prone to maladies in the data, specifically multicollinearity. The third one, efforts are carried out for improved estimation, keeping sparsity and robustness. Fourth one, improving just using the iteratively wetted approach. We have these three contributions. The first one is comparison of OLS and some robust regression methods under varying levels of collinearity and different percentages of outliers. The second, we have a new proposed wetted lasso based on new wetted scheme and its comparison with the existing wetted least lead lasso. The third one, improved lasso using robust lasso instead of the square lasso using the iteratively wetted approach. In the first study, we have compared these methods, the ordinary least square, least median square, least trend squares estimation, and MM estimation. We see while using the OLS, we minimize the objective functions, and if certain set of assumptions they are fulfilled in the OLS estimator, that is blue. But if these assumptions are not fulfilled, the OLS estimate resulting in inaccurate parameter estimates, inaccurate statistical inference like large standard errors, large confidence interval, etc. We have generally, practically, all the classical assumptions, they may not be satisfied, so we have, in order to minimize the striking effects on the classical estimates, we have the robust regression approach. The main aim of robust regression, that is the description of the structure, basically the bulk of the data, identifying and the deviating points or the deviating structures for further treatments, identification of highly influential data points. Robust regression, unlike the least square, and give weights to different observation differently, like to downweight the extreme observation. Here we have brief introduction of these robust methods. The first one is least absolute deviation, where we minimize the, instead of the sum of square, we minimize the sum of the absolute residue. This is a highly robust method, but prone to bad leverages, not robust in case of bad leverages. The second one is least median square, where instead of minimizing the sum of square residues, we go for minimizing the median of the square residues. Next one is M estimation, where we replace the square loss function by the rho function. Where this rho function, we minimize these objective functions, and we have a set of normal equations like these. Then we produce a weight function given by this, and we solve the problem by iterative least square, so that we may downweight the deviating observations. Here are some basic features of the rho function. The rho function is non-negative. It has a unique minimum at 0. It is symmetric. It is a monotone function and continuous differentiable. Here are some of the choices for the objective function, the psi function, and the weight function. Here we see these are the weightings, like in OLS we have no restriction upon the weights, the remaining we downweight as the values are deviating. Here the next method is the S method, where we derive the estimated vector of coefficients by minimizing the M estimate of the scale of the residues. We use this expression to find out the M scale of the residues. We have MM estimator, which is a high breakdown, highly efficient estimator. This estimator is derived in 3 steps. Of course, the first step involves an initial high breakdown point estimator. Then we go for the residues, the M scale of the residue calculated in the first steps. And then we go in the third step to derive the M estimate of the coefficients using that scale from the previous step. This MM estimator possesses high breakdown, highly efficient, but unfortunately, this may be prone to the effect of the high leverage points. Here is some of the parameters of the study. We have the sample size. We consider 50, 100, 150, 200. The predicted variables, percentage of outliers, the models, and throughout these studies, we have taken all the betas fixed every one. Since we want to assess these methods under different levels of collinearity, we have used this equation to generate the predictor variables. You see the correlation matrices with the value of rho square generated to the above scheme. Similarly, the scatter plot matrices. In order to have different percentages of outlier, we have used these 5 cases. The first one, error is generated from normal. In the remaining cases, we have used the contaminated normal mixture. We have repeated the experiment 1000 times to calculate these two performance measures, which is the total mean square error and the total absolute bias. Here we have, for different sample sizes, the graphs that you see, these are for sample size 200. We see at x-axis, these are different collinearity levels, these are different methods. The first one is for 10% outlier, the second for 20%, this for 30%, and that one is for 40%. We see that at lower levels, these methods are somewhat stable, but at a very higher level, there are drastic changes in almost all the methods. And same information by the graphs of the total absolute bias. These are the values which we have calculated for different methods under different portions of outliers and different levels of collinearity. One important thing that was for the 40% outlier being interrupted by a high level of multicollinearity, MM estimate, which is apparently a popular and efficient estimator, that was the worst of all. The next here is about the weighted net loss. So the first one is the least absolute deviation method. This is very robust, but prone to the big leverage points. So we have the concept of weighted net in order to downweight the leverage points, and then the efforts to make the lead method sparse and more robust. We have these attempts in the literature. Like we have the lead lasso. This is the objective function which minimizes in case of the lead lasso. It is quite convenient to compute the lead lasso estimator simply by augmenting the data set and then applying the same lead approach towards that transformed data set. Similarly, in case of the weighted least absolute lasso, we use these weights, and they are determined like this to downweight the leverage points. But when the predictor variables, they are elliptically distributed, the weighted least absolute deviation lasso method may be prone to the effect of masking the strengthening. So we have a new proposed weighted lead absolute lasso method, where what we do, we create a mean column by taking the arithmetic mean of all the observation in the X space. We standardize it, and then we go for using this weighting scheme. And when we use this scheme, what we do, we transform the data set by multiplying the weights, and then we augment that data set by applying the lead. We go for the solution of the weighted lead lasso. Again, we have compared the lead lasso, W lead lasso with the existing weights, and the proposed W lead lasso with the new weights. So we have generated the main bulk of the data by using the multivariate normal, and similarly we have the contaminated portion of the data from multivariate normal with different mu vectors and covariance patterns. Then we have combined these two segments of the data into a single one and use the lead algorithm to go for its solution. We have used the sample size is 20, 40, 60, and we have used these performance indicators, which include the number of percentage of correctly estimated coefficients, percentage of correctly classified 0, false positive, false negative, normalized mean square error, etc. And here we have the values and these performance measures for lead Dessous and for weighted lead Dessous, the proposed one, which is the last column. Since we have used in this case n equal to 20, we see at lower contamination rates the proposed method is only comparable with the remaining MAs. The contamination rate is increased. We see in most of the indicators the proposed one is better. The only one which we have seen the false negative, this resulting into worse, but this for sample size 40 and 60 later on, we have seen that according to the false negative rate, also the proposed method is a good one. This is for n equal to 60. And these are the graphs. These graphs are for n equal to 20. We see for the proposed method, this is the percentage of correctly classified coefficient. We see this is above R. Similarly, the second is for normalized mean square error. You see this given by this line, which is lower than R. The third one is the false positive, and we see at this one the false negative is above R, but it has seen in the sample size 40 and 60. This was also lower. We have applied the same approach to real data set, Hawkins data set. This is there are 75 observations. The observation 1 to 10 they are weight averages. We have fixed values for parameters, and then after application of these methods, these are the measures of the coefficient, the standard error, and the p-values. So we can see again our method is compatible with the remaining, but in this case the contamination rate is low. And third, we have the usual Dessous problem. We have this objective function to be minimized, but you see this is a square loss function in case of violation in the assumption or non-normality or outliers. An idea is to replace the square loss function by using the robust loss function, and if we minimize this and use a weight like this would become a weighted Dessous problem like this one. And then we have transformed the data by multiplying the weights, and then the usual Dessous algorithm is applied. We have updated the data set with the weights again and again. We have checked the convergence, and by this way we can improve the performance of Dessous to some extent. Again, we have two bulks of the data. We have a fixed set of parameters. We have used the different contamination rates, and in this case we have just used the percentage of correctly classified zeros and incorrectly classified zeros. So we see this is the Dessous, and this one is the iteratively weighted Dessous. We see these percentages for both the measures seem to be quite greater than that of Dessous. Then we have the concluding remarks. So for the first one, overall the methods with respect to both performance criteria, total mean square error and total absolute noise, increasing the sample size both resulted in improvements for every method. With increasing the number of predictors, each scenario, both performance measure for all methods resulted in higher values. This one, all the methods for lower levels were quite stable, and at higher levels there was a drastic change, and specifically for N, which was seen to be higher when the 40% of outlier is interrupted by a higher level of multicollinearity. Similarly, in the WZ case, when the predictors are elliptically distributed, so there will be the masking the disturbing effect. So we use the new scheme and the proposed mechanism. The results were quite better. And finally, we use the other I have submitted to Ajay in a third one time working right now. Finally, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to my supervisor, Professor Dr. Salahuddin, for his support, assistance, and motivation. I would also like to thank Professor Dr. Muhammad Iqbal, Chairman, Department of Statistics, my other professors, Dr. Kamul Zaman, Dr. Asim, Dr. Namjesa, and all my fellows. I am also thankful to Higher Education Commission for assisting me while conducting these studies.
Is dealing with the problem of outliers or the problem of linear relationship between the regressors?
It is dealing with the interruption of the collinearity levels on those robust methods.
No, but at the same time, you are also talking about the outliers.
Yes, sir.
What is the relation between outliers and the problem of multilinearity?
Sir, actually, in practical data, it may happen that both of the assumptions are violated.
In outliers, कोई भी assumption नहीं है जैसे. Is
No,
there any assumption?
Assumption is not
Assumption of what?
normality.
Assumption of least square.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Least square की एक assumption है कि if the regressors are linearly related with each other, then there is the problem of multilinearity. Outlier के वाले से कुछ ऐसी है?
Sir, I am saying we use the robust regression methods to cope with outliers.
Technique proposed की है, उसकी mathematical background कुछ नहीं. You didn't give any mathematical जो है उसका derivation to prove your own जो है procedure formula. आपने तो just एक weight उठाया कहा इसकी बजाय ये कर. Why?
Actually, sir, these are methods based on algorithms. I think by investigating them mathematically,
ये कहाँ
this
है?
will be worked.
डॉक्टर साहब को लाना इसका जो proposed method है.
Which one?
कहाँ? आपने एक आपने slide
The same is on this.
Slides number against you.